yourself. Yeah.
That's like a baby's toy.
How unusual. Yeah. I think that is more pronounced in the Bay Area, but I think, I think that's the wave. You want a wave watch to replace your midterm elections. There you go.
Sure, exactly. No, I think, and part of it is also the good news is that, like I was the premise here is that I just think food in general is just really good, and part of it is the internet, and part of it is now nigh on a decade of really popular like Food Network content, and like
I don't mean to get political, but also, globalization. For whatever else you think of it, it has made it easier to get all the ingredients you need. Right, you're not just relying on local farms. At the same time, local farms have gotten better at saying, "Well, hey, we can grow ginseng, we can grow heirloom tomatoes. We can grow these ingredients you want." So the combination of both of those means you have a whole lot more high quality ingredients to choose from in more places than you used to.
Yeah. Also, if you take out the idea of freshness for certain very, very few certain things, by and large, the kind of like eat local thing is kind of a fallacy.
Shots fired from Justin Robert Young.
Don't at me, but it's bad for farmers, and it's bad economically.
Oh man, you're just asking for it. theyoungamerican@gmail.com.
Yeah. So go send your.
You mean like hyper local foods?
We got 2 minutes before the show.
Hyper local foods is a bad idea. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, I would disagree with you.
We got 2 minutes before the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bad for whom? And that's the big question. Right?
We also haven't tested Sarah's connection because she's.
I could have as the descendant of restaurateurs, I can have this conversation all day.
Well, on the post show.
Yeah. No, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. All
right. No. To sum it up, that is a little bit trolly, obviously, but I think the best thing is where you can get the freshest, best price for everybody, from the farmer to the restaurateur to the distributor. These things tend to,
our perspectives might be a little skewed because we are in a region, not just in the U.S., but of the world, that is heavy on produce.
Yeah,
that means leafy greens, citrus, fruits, nuts,
and a ton of fresh stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we should probably wrap this up before we bleed into the show.
Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. We're gonna. Hey, actually, I think you all are on iPhones, are you not? Except for Roger.
No, I am an Android. I will never switch.
I don't know if you have the equivalent, but I was going to pull up my own screen time stats.
Oh, it might, but I don't think I have the app for that.
Okay. If you
I can pull that up. There we go.
All right, we'll compare those during the show. All right, I am ready to rock. In, I don't know, 10 seconds? 10 seconds work for everybody?
Sure, Gonzo. Is it Gonzo? That's not Gonzo who does that.
Who?
On The Muppet Show, who produces everything in the back.
It's The Muppet Show.
2, 1. Thanks to everyone who supports independent tech news directly. If you're not already, become a DTS member right now at patreon.com/DTNS. This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, December 13th, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Oakland, California, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And from a location that's undisclosed, I'm producer Roger Chang.
So if you listen to previous episodes.
Don't ruin it.
Hey, you know what? This is a time of year when a lot of people are hiding behind their screens. Try to get away from family or to just keep up on family events or all kinds of things. And of course, screen time has been a huge area of focus for criticism of and defense by phone makers and a lot of other technology makers. We're going to talk about ourselves, not you, but are we guilty of this? We're going to turn the light back on us. The judges shall be judged on this episode. Let's start with a few other tech things you should know.
Some more screen news of sorts. Samsung announced it will show off 2 versions of its Notebook 9 pen at CES. The fingerprint sensor has shifted to an easier place to use without hitting arrow keys. Either of its 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports can be used for charging now, but it only has one USB-C 3.1 port, a micro SD card reader, and an audio combo jack. No HDMI and no USB-C-A. The 15-inch device will include NVIDIA GeForce MX 150 graphics card, although no pricing was announced for either that or the 13-inch model.
Google's Family Link app for parental control on Android phones now works on Chromebooks. Parents can whitelist apps and websites, set screen time limits, remotely lock devices, and monitor usage.
And Qualcomm filed a request with Chinese courts to ban the current round of iPhones. That's the 10R, the 10S, the 10S Max. If you recall, a Chinese court ruled Monday that the older versions of iPhones, from like the 6 through the 10, violated 2 patents from Qualcomm and banned the sale of those, although Apple has continued selling them, arguing the latest version of iOS does not infringe those patents. And round the patent wars go between Apple and Qualcomm. Let's talk about some peace, though, being declared. Justin?
Back in 2015, Amazon removed the Chromecast from its online store, saying its new rule was to only sell streaming devices that supported Amazon's own Prime Video. But today, Chromecasts are back. A year after Amazon announced it would change course and sell them again, 3rd-gen Chromecast and Chromecast Ultra sell for $35 and $69 respectively, with Prime shipping discounts available.
Which, a lot of people cried foul about this back in the day because Amazon said, well, it's got to have Prime Video because that's our thing. But Amazon can dictate where Prime Video goes. So folks were saying, well, it's not so much that the Chromecast is not capable of doing that. It absolutely is. You just want to sell more Fire Sticks.
Yeah. It takes 2 to tango, right? If Amazon doesn't make an app for the Chromecast or make its app work with the Chromecast, then Chromecast can't do anything about it. On the other hand, Amazon could enable that and then Chromecast say, nah, we want to block it. That's not what happened, but I'm just saying it does take 2 to tango here. Chromecast seems to have always been willing to do this. Now, Chromecast selling in the Amazon store is different than Prime Video working with Chromecast. As far as I know, the Prime Video app still does not have a Chromecast button. We'll see if that eventually changes.
And between 2015 and 2018, there's been a marked uptick in people saying things like monopoly, anti-competitive behavior about companies like Amazon and Google. These are big decisions that they need to make sure that they stay on the right side of. It is not a question of if, it is a question of when there becomes more political viability in looking to challenge the holdings of the FANG companies.
So I'm when you say that, I'm imagining the conversation in the halls of Amazon between Sarah Prime Video and Laura corporate law attorney. And Sarah's like, come on, no, I need to put more pressure on the Chromecast. And Laura attorney is like, we just can't let you do this anymore, Sarah. I'm real sorry.
Sarah.
I'm sorry. it could be.
I was like, is it me? Like,
Billie Jean. Sorry. That was a bad pick.
Apple announced it will build a $1 billion campus in Austin, Texas, and build extra offices, build out new office space anyway, in Seattle, San Diego, and the Los Angeles area. Almost a year ago, Apple said it was going to look for locations outside of both California and Texas. Those are the 2 states where most of its employees work. The new Austin campus is a 133-acre site, roughly a mile from an existing site. Well, that's still in Texas. It will support 5,000 additional employees with the possibility to expand to 15,000 workers eventually. Meanwhile, CNBC is reporting that Apple hired almost 50 medical doctors to find answers to real medical problems and use Apple tools to help people deal with them.
So it's our Apple report of the day here. On the one hand, we've got Apple with their own take on the Amazon HQ. They didn't get the tax breaks for these things that Amazon did by doing like a big publicity blitz. But what their aim wasn't that so much as showing how many jobs they're bringing to America right now. And that's what they're going to be able to point to with these expansions.
Sure. Obviously, Austin is its own has its own exploding tech sector, and the existence of these jobs is something that will continue to be both a boon and a controversial topic whenever we discuss them. I think Austin specifically, for as somebody who spent a fair amount of time there recently, has exploded population wise, and it is very much straining under that pressure. The traffic is really, really bad, and some of the infrastructure is not quite there for it. But then on the other side, when Amazon moves to New York City and Washington, D.C., which is a big city that theoretically could get bigger, now the problem is, no, you should have moved it to some place that doesn't have these kinds of jobs here to be had. So I think this makes sense for Apple, but to your point, Tom, I think it's good they kept it a little quieter.
Yeah. And there were 6,200 jobs in Austin already. So this is just taking something that was already big and saying, hey, we're going to expand. It's kind of a natural thing for a company that is vying to be the biggest valued company in the world to do. You would expect that. Hiring on the medical doctors, though, and keeping medical doctors employed, really interesting, because it's an example of Apple saying, let's do something because we think it will have the result we want in our products, which is let's just fund doctors to do stuff. And I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with music as well. When they buy a label, like, let's fund musicians, let's fund doctors, let's fund journalists. They hired a bunch of journalists to work on their news app. Let's hire the people who do the thing that feeds our features. It's an interesting tactic that only someone with an Apple amount of cash could do.
Well, especially if you think about some of the new features that Apple Watch version 4 has, for example. You got a heart murmur. Well, the watch might be able to tell you that. Okay, well, what if there's some sort of discrepancy and Apple has a doctor that is employed by the company who has great credentials and is able to, provide more information about that, or maybe squelch an issue. It is odd to me that Apple has hired, I don't know, upwards of 50 doctors. And I'm sure they're in various different fields, but yeah, it seems to be something that they're going pretty deep into.
I would say that your heart monitor point is kind of what they're looking for is, hey, look, this was a big thing. It got a lot of great press. It sold me a watch because I bought one for my father-in-law who has heart problems. So they want more of that. Like, hey, this iPad, what can it do for your diabetes?
It'll save your life.
Get on.
Yeah, no, exactly. They want to be able to say their devices are saving lives more and more often. Time for a browser update. Privacy-focused browser Brave has joined Vivaldi, Opera, Google, Chrome, and soon Microsoft Edge in migrating to Chromium. Most of its user base has made the switch already, and it says you should see a 22% speed boost. Previously, Brave did use the Chromium page rendering engine, but that was it. They've now transferred on to the whole platform. Brave users will be able to use Chrome extensions, but they will not get access to integrated Google-based features like account login, sync, and search suggestions because they are privacy-based. Also, Opera announced in a public release of its Web3-ready Android browser. It's got its built-in cryptocurrency wallet, so you can download that for Android now. It supports Ether and any token using Ethereum's ERC20 standard, as well as collectibles like CryptoKitties. They use the ERC 721 standard.
So this is something that I've certainly noticed the trend, but it seems overwhelming at this point that Chromium has kind of just become the new standard in web browsers, right? Like this
and we talked about it when Microsoft officially announced that they are switching to Chromium. I both love and hate this. I wish everyone was switching to Mozilla's platform because that is a true open source foundation accountable to no one. Chromium is open source. I'm not trying to undermine that, but it is controlled by Google. I think the more of these companies that get on the Chromium platform, though, the more pressure there will be for Google to stay out of it. To sort of maybe even eventually spin it off into a more independent foundation that isn't so dependent on Google. And you could see the equivalent of a hostile takeover by Microsoft happening at some point in the future, possibly, as if they just put more and more people working on this browser.
Yeah. It is just kind of fascinating, though, that sort of took that stance. Although this has been a very profitable thing for Google in the past, right? With Android being open source.
Well, we got all kinds of roundups. We've had an Apple roundup. We've had a browser roundup. We got another one.
Oh, Tom, it's time for a food delivery roundup. Instacart will start removing 1,415 workers out of 76 Whole Food locations in February. A source tells Recode that it will reduce Instacart's revenue by less than 5%. In the last year and a half, Instacart has signed on with Kroger, Aldi, Sam's Club, and Walmart Canada. And Postmates VP of Robotics, Ali Kashani, has led an effort to design and build his own delivery robot called Serve. Wired has a profile on it. It's about 1 meter high and it has an anthropomorphic face, including blinking eyes, a touchscreen on top for status messages, and LEDs around its body, so it can use to signal which way it intends to go. Postmates plans to use it to pick up and deliver either end of a trip, while a car takes it from place to place. Delivery will begin in Los Angeles.
I don't know. We keep hearing about these. Like, wasn't Amazon going to have a bunch of delivery robots all over the sidewalks? And we all talked about this about a year ago. Like, oh, and people are going to deface them.
Starship. Oh, I hate it when Amazon gets everybody's mind share with their publicity stunts. Amazon made a video once, never did anything. Starship has been out there actually delivering things on their robots in the United States, in Estonia, in the United Kingdom. But now we're actually seeing a real competitor in Postmates coming up against it. And Amazon, yeah, I mean, they pretend.
Well, all right. Okay. I have not seen a Starship robot. Doesn't mean that they're not,
all right, that's fair.
Out and about in the world, on the Estonian streets. But the Postmates thing is interesting because as somebody who is very fond of her food delivery, and I use Postmates, sometimes I use Uber Eats, depends on where I'm getting it from and what the prices are. But if you see somebody who's delivering your food and they're on a bicycle rather than a car, because you can see that within the app, half the time I'm like, oh man, now it's going to come cold. So this sort of thing is, it really matters what this whole kind of last mile is. Yeah. Because it does make sense that the car would probably do the lion's share of the delivery. So where does this AI robot fit in?
I think this is genius. So the robot gets dropped off by a driver at a restaurant to do the waiting. That driver goes on to something else. They're done. The robot waits instead of a bunch of people waiting. The robot waits for the food to be put into it. As soon as it gets the food, it signals the nearest driver to come get it and drive it to the drop-off place.
Got it.
Then the robot gets out and delivers the food to you. That driver can go on to something else. And then as soon as you've taken the food out, it calls the nearest driver to come get it. So instead of drivers wasting a bunch of gas looking for parking, or just wasting a lot of time sitting around when they could be making other deliveries, it puts some efficiency in the system, I think.
I'm 100% for this if this robot can take my food up to my apartment instead of calling me and making me come downstairs.
If a robot can get up my stairs, Postmates deserves all the money in the world.
I mean, I got an elevator. You just got to get into the door.
My big question before we leave this topic is this the future for Instacart? Because remember, Postmates does lots of things. It doesn't just do restaurants. It can do groceries as well. Could it get so efficient? Could these robots scale up? They'd have to scale up a little to give Instacart a run for its money delivering food. I don't know if I have the answer. It's something
I'd like to see them actually in use first before we start having them take
the Starship ones were definitely in use in DC. BioCow used one in Redwood City. So they've been there.
They're not
everywhere.
Yes. And let's do it in the playoffs.
Before we move on, I just a little note on Instacart. Clearly, when Amazon bought Whole Foods, the Instacart situation was not long for this world. Yeah, but I was surprised to hear that this would supposedly impact Instacart's bottom line by less than 5%. Because the Instacart Whole Foods relationship was the only one that I knew of that Instacart had. Although clearly there are others.
I think I said, at least I'd like to imagine I said at the time, that all the other grocery stores are going to be as scared as Whole Foods is, as Instacart is, of losing Whole Foods, and they'll all team up. And maybe that will be Instacart's salvation. And it seems like that has happened.
Well, there's a prediction show coming up, Tom. Stock trading app Robinhood launched zero-free 3% interest checking and savings accounts, claiming that it has more U.S. ATM coverage than the 5 biggest banks combined. That's like B of A and Wells Fargo and the like. The card is a MasterCard debit card, and it's issued through Sutton Bank and starts shipping on December 18th.
This is genius. This Robinhood company is either going to crash out horribly, or be the thing that everybody else should have been doing while it was doing it, because no cost transactions on stocks was a big deal, and their premise had always been, we're lean. We're leaner than E-Trade, Scottrade. Scottrade isn't around anymore, but TD Ameritrade, any of those places, which is why we don't have to charge you fees. We'll just make money on the interest. Now they're saying the same thing about banks. They're saying they've got a little bit of a deal with MasterCard where they'll share some of that revenue, but they're mostly saying we're lean, and we'll make money off of reinvesting in the savings just like any other bank. But we only have a few hundred employees, and that's all we need because we don't have branches.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this is oftentimes when you talk about disruption, which has become such a buzzword, I don't know exactly how much it means anymore. But to me, it is how few people do we need to do something? How radically can we do it? And how much does our success redefine the market around us? And with the other idea being, okay, if everything is inefficient, then the change will be more thunderous than it would be if it is an efficient business. And I think that, stock trading and stuff like that has been a fairly static, stable kind of industry, largely because you don't want radical, crazy things happening when you're talking about investing your money, right? In general, the brands that we trust, they have commercials during golf, and they involve a wealthy older couple talking about their grandchildren, right? Like the very marks of stability. So
I'm sorry, Justin, I couldn't hear all those reasonable things you were saying over the 3% interest I'll get not only on savings, but also on checking.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think that's really, really smart. And I think that we are kind of long overdue for this kind of thinking when it comes to banking. I mean, look, I remember I switched to Ally literally just because they promised that they would just reimburse all my ATM fees because we don't have ATMs. And it's
My
like
credit union does that too.
It's that
Huge.
little thing where it's like, oh, wow, like, I can get this. I can get a decent interest rate, and I can have something that affects me on a daily basis. 3% interest is a very, very, very good number.
Now, BioCow in our chat room, who works in the industry, says, I'd like to see what ATM networks they support. I imagine that he knows there would be a way to claim they have more coverage and still not have very good coverage.
Right. Is it MasterCard's coverage or something like that? And I think, Tom, your point is, does this whole thing spectacularly flame out because it's too good to be true? Is it too hard to get, I don't know, normal person who just wants their money to be safe in an institution that they've heard of and has been around for a century, to switch over to a company where it might sound really good now, but are they going to be around in 5 to 10 years? Which would be one of my concerns as well.
I mean, Robinhood's been around for longer than I thought they'd be. I heard about them a couple of years ago from a friend of mine, and I didn't think they'd still be going, and here they are. So who knows? BioCast says he's going to look into this for us. So hopefully, if he finds anything,
the cow's on the case.
We'll pass it along to you. Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. Now, this is a press release news story. I just want to make it clear we wouldn't normally cover this, but it made me think about something. So I'm going to tell you about it anyway. I saw the story that Vitamin Water is running a contest where it'll give one person, $100,000 if they can go all year without using a smartphone or a tablet. They'll give them a 1996 era cell phone. And if they can be verified that they haven't touched a smartphone or tablet, theirs or anyone else's, they'll get $100,000. If after 6 months they just can't stand it anymore, they'll still get $10,000. And only one contestant is going to be chosen January 22nd. But that made me think, man, this has become a marketing tool for companies. Like, hey, we all know we should cut down on our screen time. And we all know it's really hard to do. I will give you $100,000 if you do it. And so instead of just talking about like, hey, how bad is it that people have screen time issues, I wanted us to be introspective here on this show ourselves and play along at home if you'd like. do you think you have a screen time problem? Because the problem with anything like this is usually going, yeah, people need to cut down on that. Of course, I don't have that problem.
Sure.
Justin, let's start with you. How do you think you fare with your screen time addiction?
Well, Tom, what do you say we just go to the numbers? I will show you yours if you show me
You're
mine.
a C on the DISC personality assessment test, I see.
All right, here we go. This, according to my iPhone, for the last 7 days, a progressive rolling jackpot of 5 hours, 22 minutes per day.
What?
It says over the last
5 hours, 22 minutes per day. Sarah, you were surprised at the amount, up or down?
I'm 1 hour, 34 minutes per day.
Oh yeah,
Although I am on my computer a lot.
Those are rookie numbers. We need to get those numbers up.
No, well, because I was like, oh God, I'm spending an hour and a half looking at my phone every day. Please, Sarah. But 5 hours, that you're just doing a lot more on your phone than I am. I'm sitting in front of my laptop.
I thought I was real good. I'm right here in the middle of you both. 3 hours and 9 minutes per day.
No, look, my phone is the gateway to my entire life. I think screen time is something that is a very, very tricky thing to talk about. And obviously there are very clear examples of where this can be harmful in younger developing minds. I think that there is a tendency
problems with insomnia.
Sure. There are those elements there. However, I do think that it is at its heart a misleading statistic, because there is a difference between farting around on your phone, which is something that I definitely do quite a bit, and doing business on my phone, which I also do quite a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So says every addict about the thing they don't want to give up, though.
Well, but all right. So look, I have.
What's your most used app?
Instagram,
Twitter,
and
Pocket Camp.
It's embarrassing too, because it's like, okay, well, I'm averaging 54 pickups picking up my phone per day.
Yeah.
Most of those are going to Instagram. So even though, yes, there is work being done on my phone, absolutely. Although I really do prefer to sit in front of my laptop for most things, when I'm just kind of doing my Monday through Friday work. Clearly on my phone, I'm not really doing that much work, because that speaks for themselves.
This is interesting. I have 50 pickups per day, but I have significantly more time spent.
Oh yeah, I have 128 pickups per day.
That's a lot.
Justin Robert Young.
I think pickups. I mean, you have to figure screen time in there too, but I think pickups is one of the things where it causes stress, because you're like, pick up, look. Oh, interrupt. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't spend the vast majority of my day by myself. Like,
Me too.
But
Me too.
Yeah, then again, I guess we all do. I have a problem.
I sit alone with my animals. All day.
You have birds, we have dogs.
Episode of Daily News Show. Oh my God.
I mean, but I also think that this is misleading, because I'm giving you a hard time. You're just better at mobile than I am getting things done. Sitting in front of a computer is not being counted into all this stuff.
I'm certainly better at Twitter, as I've spent 10 hours and 7 minutes over the last days on Twitter.
Justin Robert Young.
I love Twitter.
I spent an hour 31 minutes on Twitter over the past 7 days.
Oh man, I have spent very little time. In fact, I've been actively avoiding Twitter these days, because it's just, I don't know, it's soul crushing. But some of the apps that I don't even want to name, some of them, I'm like, Sarah, you need to get out and about.
I will put it out there. I am ashamed, but I'll put it out there. My number one app is Pocket Camp, the Animal Crossing game.
Okay.
I thought you meant Pocket Casts. Pocket Camp.
No, Pocket Camp. 4 hours and 30 minutes on Pocket Camp, because the phone for me is a deal with a emergency and or relax and entertain myself.
Yes.
So Pocket Camp is number one. Number two is Feedly, because I use this to look at the RSS feeds when I'm preparing for the show quite often. Then Safari, which is probably concomitant with that. Then Twitter, then BBC News, which is my news source every morning, hour and 25 minutes. Amazon, because it's Christmas time. And then UTalk, which I just installed last week because I'm teaching myself a foreign language on there. So I look at these and I'm like, yeah, I think that's all okay.
Yeah. So mine are, this is the top 10 here. Twitter at 10 hours, 7 minutes. These are a week's worth of statistics. Safari, 4 hours, 4.5 hours. Shopify, 3 hours. Look,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
work. Solid 3 hours of work that I spent on Shopify. Hearthstone, 2.5. Messages, 2.5. Instagram, an hour and a half. Yeah, and then they get into
You know
Wow,
what's most interesting in my stats, and it's funny. We've had this feature, but I really haven't looked at it in great detail until we decided to all do this on the show today. I am very anti-notification. I have notifications turned off for almost everything because I just can't stand it, and I do find it very distracting. However, that being said, I average around 109 notifications per day.
Oh man.
Now, it doesn't mean that I'm if I get an Instagram notification that somebody DM'd me, like I'm not necessarily always going in there. Doesn't mean that it's triggering an action necessarily, but it is there, and that surprises me because I like to pride myself on, oh yeah, notifications are always turned off. I just do stuff on my own time, but that's not really true.
I have 227 notifications per day.
Per day. Wow. I have 53 per day.
Well, Tom, aren't you just so much better than everyone?
Well, I lost in all the other categories. But notifications is the biggest cause of stress out of your phone.
Yeah.
Again, this is what it goes back to what
I agree.
Because screen time doesn't mean the same thing, as Justin pointed out for everybody. It's not just screen time. It's like, is that the kind of screen time that's causing stress? And I think this conversation is having a positive effect by showing like, hey, you could have a lot of screen time, but low stress because of the way you're using it.
Yeah. So most of my notifications are Discord, which I do need to kind of keep an eye on and tend to garden with the communities that we've created there. I probably could use less notifications in inbox, but then WhatsApp as well, because we just started a new business.
Mine are messages, Slack, and Patreon. They're all work related, and then the NHL. That's my number 4.
I feel like there are certain times where I'm using my phone or a laptop or a computer of some kind, to the point where I'm like, I got to get away from the screen. And then there are other times where I feel, I've been reading books and looking at nature, and it kind of depends on the day. However, I do find that, for example, I took my dog to the dog park yesterday and I just forgot my phone. I don't know. I left it on the table and didn't realize it until I was there, and I was already there. So I was going to be there for a while. And it was like, I had such a hard time just like sitting there and like dealing with life without the phone, just knowing that I didn't have it. And that's the thing that gets me the most. It's not so much that I needed it for anything. It's just that as soon as I realized it wasn't there, I was super stressed.
Yeah,
I could not relax, and that's a little weird.
Hey, one note on this vitamin water thing? They said they want to give a 1996 cell phone. The most popular cell phone in 1996 was the Nokia 8110. I don't know how you. 8110, right? Which had the slide case. So it was before they went to the full candy bar. It had the slide case just in case you were.
Might be worth doing just for that. Yeah.
I had a Motorola something or other in 1996.
I had no phone.
It wasn't. Yeah. It was, there weren't not a lot of people had cell phones, and it was probably about 400 pounds. Thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. Sometimes there are Nokia stories and sometimes there aren't. You can submit your own stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. If you hang out on Facebook, we'll hang out in our Facebook group. Why don't you? Facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow.
What's in the mailbag, Sarah?
Well, if you listen to DTNS, but you aren't familiar with Good Day Internet, which sort of wraps around DTNS in its own candy case of sorts, we got a real nice email from Hal, who said, "If you don't listen to GDI, just take my word for it. Thank you so much for entertaining and brightening the day of this lone desktop warrior. Always upbeat, friendly, and clean banter. And then I get informed. What a daily pleasure." So not to toot our own horn too much, but I thought, well, that was real nice.
Thank you, Hal.
Yes. And thank you also to Justin Robert Young for being with us today. 2 days in a row, in fact. Well, I guess I'm going a little out of order. Never mind.
One of those days is coming up at the end of December, but yeah.
What's been going on since we saw you last week, Justin?
Oh, Sarah, I'm so glad you asked. Folks, I've been, of course, staying on my political grind with the Politics podcast and my free political newsletter at freepoliticalnewsletter.com. So you can go ahead and sign up for both there. A new episode yesterday talking about all of the craziness that is currently going on with the Mueller investigation, and some international flair as Europe is going through some things. They are in their feeling, as the kids say.
And a Macron pole dance as well. So
There is,
to boot.
we go across the pond for President Emmanuel Macron presidential approval pole dance.
Yeah. Check it out, folks. Freepoliticalnewsletter.com makes my day brighter. It can make your days brighter too. Also, if you're an associate producer of patreon.com/DTNS, you've got a new column from me encouraging you to declare notification bankruptcy. If all this talk about screen time got you like, I need to do something, I've got a plan for you to manage your notifications. Check it out. It's at patreon.com/DTNS.
If you've got feedback for us, well, we've got an email address for you, and that is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday. Join us if you can, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 21:30 UTC, and find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with NosillaCast's Allison Sheridan. Talk to you then.
Woohoo!
Show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Yeah, man. My column today tells everybody to go in and just turn all your notifications off. Just don't leave it there. You know, you can immediately go back and turn messages back on and anything else, but turn them all off and then go make a considered decision to turn them on.
Yeah.
I am probably a little looser with my notifications than I would otherwise like to be, but I will say that part of the only app that ever really I felt like ruined my day, stressed me out, was Facebook. And I eventually wound up coming to an uneasy truce with them in that I allowed the app to live on my phone because I had too many other stupid little things that I had authenticated through Facebook and was just annoying to like download it and log in and then authenticate and then delete it. So I have it on my phone, but all the notifications are turned off, and I have never made a happier decision in my life. I think that notifications are something that you need to earn. You know, all apps and services need
and they're one of the leading causes of stress from your phone. They cause cortisol to rise. There's been studies about that. Like they are the thing that will stress you out and you won't realize it. You won't know why you're feeling stressed because
it's like somebody tapping you on the shoulder all day.
So when you see the notification, you get a reward. So it's like someone's tapping you on the shoulder to give you a cookie all day, right? Yeah. Because you're like, ooh,
yeah.
But then, after the end of the day, you're going to be stressed out because you didn't get anything done because someone kept giving you cookies. You also be really big because you ate all those cookies. But.
You know, I don't have a solution for this because they're just going to do it anyway. But Facebook is certainly not the only offender, but the most annoying one, and that is just like rando email notifications that I've for sure turned off a million times in the past. But they just find like a new way to pose it to me, like Justin Robert Young just liked Tom Merritt's photo, where I'm like,
the email ones, they get by any decision you've made,
and every single time I unsubscribe, and Facebook says, okay, fine, and then they just it's just, if it wasn't so big, and we've complained about this so many times in the past, so I know it's a bit of a broken record, but if it wasn't something that I felt I had to use to keep up with people in my life that I love and work, I would flush it down the toilet real quick.
The key is to shift as many things as possible to active checking, where you check it because you think, oh, I should check Facebook, not push checking where it taps you on the shoulder and it's like, hey, let me give you a cookie. You know,
and I'm actually pretty good about like Facebook. I'll check it in the morning. Every morning I will open up a Facebook tab and just
That's your routine. That's fair.
It's just, I'm kind of, figuring out what's been going on in the last 24 hours. But otherwise, any notification from Facebook throughout the day on any platform is, it fills me with rage because I want so badly not to get them, but they do it anyway.
Roger, did you get a chance to pick a title while we were chatting?
I was looking at Vitamin Water's 100,000 K replenishment. Might be a little long.
It's a little long.
Yeah. Say something-
Screening our time is my second follow-up.
Yeah,
That
I
is
would
my follow-up.
some pun on screen time.
Screening our time.
Screening our time. Yeah. All right.
That's good. That's
I'm
good.
liking it.
You know, I'm a vitamin water fan myself.
Mhm.
I don't know about the rest of you.
There's only 2 flavors I can stomach.
There are 2 flavors that I like more than the others. I wonder if we have the same ones. But it's funny to me that vitamin water would be like, we'll take back the night. We'll give you money for not using your phone too much. Drink vitamin water. As if you couldn't do both.
What about
Well, it's about health, right? I think that's their pitch.
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
Vitamin water is healthy, which it really isn't, honestly.
It's very sugary, in
It's
fact.
very sugary.
That's why it tastes
but
so
they're
good.
going to try but vitamins, but we put vitamin in the name, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
and what you find out they're just grinding up Flintstones chewables into like just
I think
Giant
that might
vitamin.
even be healthy.
That would actually be better, in fact. Yeah. Higher and I don't know.
I'm a Flintstones kid. Chug 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 chug.
But yeah, so Roger, I like the it's like the XX one that has it's dark, like blackberry pomegranate, acai.
I
love
like that one. I like that one, and I like the punch.
I like the sort of the equivalent of the Gatorade lemon lime.
Oh, the
I don't
Revive.
drink vitamin water because there's too much sugar in it.
It's
Well, what
it's
about the
really-
sugar-free version?
What's
pretty good
the replacement?
Mm.
Sucralose?
Something bad,
I
probably.
might be able to check that out.
Something toxic.
Stevia
Yeah,
Nick.
Well, no, because a lot of times they use maltol or one of the sugar
Actually,
alcohols, and that
it's
gives me-
actually artisanally refined cancer.
Small batched.
Small
Artificial
batch
sweetener.
cancer.
cancer.
Literally, some guy goes through all the diners and orders something and just picks out those little sugars.
Yeah.
For those equal
And it's
packets.
local. It's local cancer, which is
Pour over.
I see. You want to get back to this conversation where you're trashing local food.
No, I just think it's an overrated concept, and I think it's
No, I think it's a misunderstood concept. There are some benefits to local food. In a lot of cases, it has provided ingredients to restaurants that they wouldn't have had access to otherwise. And in fresher situations, I think it's overemphasized. I think there's some really good benefits to being able to have places that are really good at growing things grow them if they don't grow well near you. And we've improved on one of the big mistakes that large growers made in the past, which was growing things so they look good but didn't taste good.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that the local movement helped push. And I think locally grown food was great for that because it pushed those markets into making better food. So
yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for locally grown food.
I'm not trashing like that you should
I know, I'm
only
casting
be
you as
making
the
food,
evil villain.
yeah, from far away. But just that it as a rule, again, it's like everybody should do what's best for their customers and for their.
It's a little bit like gluten free. Gluten free is real important if you have a gluten allergy. Most people don't have gluten allergies.
Sure.
And being gluten free if you don't have a gluten allergy doesn't do anything for you.
What I find incredibly cynical is when they label a product on gluten free, and it will be, but it's like a product that wouldn't have
Would
gluten
never
in.
have had gluten.
It's like
anyway.
dried apricots. Well,
Yeah. These are gluten free.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was some deli meat I got the other day, and it was like no hormones, gluten free. I'm like,
Although
it's
I mean,
meat.
maybe they use gluten as a preservative in some meats or
It
something.
sells.
I
That's all that
suppose,
matters.
yeah.
It sells, and people who are gluten free are like, "Oh, look, that says the thing I am."
Right. And I've known folks who still do have severe gluten allergies and have had health problems totally turned around by going gluten free. I don't have that. I mean, I could eat pasta all day, and I don't think it really makes much of a difference whether I do or not. But I still do get like a weird sense of like entitlement. Where for example, there's a place near where I used to live that had this gluten-free pasta, and it was just really good, like mac and cheese, basically.
Yeah.
And I would always get it, and I would always feel a little more superior because I had this like bowl of gluten-free pasta that didn't make any difference. Tasted like normal pasta, and it didn't make me any healthier. And in fact, it was covered in cheese, so it wasn't good for me at all. But yeah, I think that's
what it's about for people without allergies. Now, if you have allergies, I you want everything to be labeled gluten-free that's possible, because, if there's gluten snuck into your deli meat and you didn't know, that can cause your life to be miserable. One of the contributors to this show is gluten-free, and their life is much better since they figured that out.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
And
I'm not trying to trash that.
Oh,
What
no,
I'm
no, no.
trying to say is, it's not a thing that applies to anyone who isn't allergic to gluten. It's not like a general health thing.
It's gluten-free's explosion as a health trend has resulted in some kind of very unfortunate side effects for people who actually have, I think it's celiac disease, right? Is the thing that is affected by gluten, because a lot of these items that are being marketed toward people who are health conscious about it do contain, whatever
amounts,
the FDA allowable trace amounts. And it's like, if you actually have the disease, that's a problem. And if
you don't want it,
things as gluten-free that has, it's gluten-free-esque, that's annoying. That's
the thing with nuts, right? That's why a lot of packaging now indicates whether or not this was also processed, with products that have contained nuts or milk or whatever.
Yeah.
I had a friend, my cousin is super allergic to peanuts, and she asked one time specifically, like, this has no peanuts, residual, whatever. It's like, nope, straight to the hospital.
Heather Frank, my co-host on Have Such a Good Day, another podcast that I do, is allergic to hazelnuts. Now you might say, well, how often are you eating hazelnuts? But it's in so many dessert stuff, especially stuff that's chocolate. I don't know why. I don't know. It's something that gets put in there a lot. So it's turned into something that, because her allergies gotten worse as she's gotten older, which happens to people sometimes, that she has to be, if you're having, I don't know, somebody gets a piece of chocolate cake for dessert at a restaurant. She's like, are there hazelnuts in it? And half the time the server's like, no, why would there be hazelnuts? But there often are.
I imagine there would be.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of those things. It's like, actually, it's in a lot of stuff. You just don't necessarily know that until you have a problem.
It's one of those ingredients that's used as a substitute to make something appear more healthy by being all natural. Like, hey, we're going to substitute. Yeah. I remember there was a case about a kid who was allergic, who got like a severe allergy to something he was eating. It was like a pastry, and they're trying to figure out, the doctors trying to figure out what it was, and it turned out it was the dye that they used, and then it was all natural, and it was all natural because it was ground up beetle shells, like from this little insect, and they ground it into a powder to make the food the blue color. And he was allergic to that, and it's like, oh, you got to stay away from that from now on.
Which is, I mean, isn't that pretty? Like, that's, I don't know what the book was, Fast Food Nation or something, where it was like, make sure that next time you see natural flavoring that it's ground up bugs. Which I think in many cases is actually true, but it's just, that's the sort of thing that's going to turn people off.
Well, that's the thing. It's like buzzwords like organic and natural. I mean, they're just a catch-all term. Like, cyanide's a naturally occurring compound in apple seeds. No one's going to, you could technically leave that in and call it natural, but not going to be good for you. Granted, you would have to eat a lot, like a lot.
Also, a tree will grow inside of you if you eat too many seeds. Everybody knows that.
Problem.
No, because my teacher told me when you go to the bathroom for number 2, it comes out.
well, your teacher is... Okay, fine.
My teacher, I had a weird teacher.
That's funny. My dad told me they'll pass through you. It was a very elegant way of explaining.
She just said, like, yeah, when you go to the bathroom to go, poo, it's gonna come out.
Because I think my grandpa made the joke about watermelon seeds. Like, well, a watermelon will grow inside you, and I was like, really? Oh my, and my dad was like,
I don't want that.
No, they'll just pass through you. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Give me some more watermelon seeds, then. I want to see that.
See, well, first of all, I'm not eating watermelon anyway, so I'm not going to eat watermelon seeds, but other kinds of seeds, especially in apples, right? You eat apple slices, seeds get in. I remember thinking, like, is there some like huge problem where kids are swallowing so many seeds that parents have to tell them that a tree is going to grow inside of their body if they don't stop doing that?
I think my grandpa just thought it was funny. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just kind of I would assume part of the body horror gaslighting that just comes along with being a parent, right? Like that you just are allowed to lie to your children about something horrifying happening to them.
Well, or maybe it's because you think your kid's going to choke on the seed, so it's just.
I would think that's probably more of the health problem, right?
Yeah, right.
Or that it
I think it was just like people would think it was funny to see the
know.
reaction that kids have when you tell them that.
Yeah.
They're stupid, these kids.
You mean like chewing gum is never it's going to sit in your stomach for decades? Remember, if you swallow gum, it's going to be in you.
Yeah, it'll be in there for 7 years.
I think red meat, somebody told me the same thing. I mean, red meat, it stays in your gut for decades.
Yeah, that was the whole like, we're not actually evolved to eat meat. We should all be eating root vegetables.
Just root vegetables?
Rude. It was rude vegetables.
Just vegetables that give you the finger in 5 o'clock traffic.
Rude.
Yeah, those are usually the root vegetables.
Oh,
to be honest. Yeah.
Come back here and say that, potato.
Exactly. Some rutabaga riding your bumper and playing music too loud with their windows down.
When's the last time you had a rutabaga?
Oh God, no!
It's been a while.
I mean, I'm sure I have had one. Going back to the food.
Yeah, it was probably in something I had at a fancy restaurant.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I had
Pop Rock.
And they called it another name even longer and more complicated than rutabaga. That's my favorite. That is something that definitely happened. That did never happen to me until I came out to the Bay Area. Was having to Google the menu before I know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, going full circle though. Going full circle to what you were saying earlier about more fine dining type options in more places. When I went back in August to my 30th class reunion, it was in a brew pub near my hometown, which you may be like, oh, okay, Tom, whatever. I mean, not something on the radar at all my entire life growing up. The bars were all in the county. And they were all dive bars. They were all, country music dive bars. And they're still there. Lenjo's is still rocking strong. I didn't get to go. I ducked out too early. But, that stuff still exists. But there's also there was a winery north of Greenville. There was this brew pub in Pocahontas. And they aren't just brew pubs. They're the brew pubs. They're gastropubs. Like they have these, nice meals that they serve. And there's a lot of factors involved in that, I think.
My guess would be that it's just easier than ever to know how to cook good food. Like the resources are there, the will is there. Like it does not take much for you to look up and try to keep cooking things until your friends are like, "Oh wow, that's delicious, man! You're a good cook."
Just put butter in it. That's all I need.
Yeah, chug a half a stick of butter. You're good to go, dog.
Yeah. You want something to taste good? Cook it in butter.
Much butter goes south with me very fast. But
it tastes good.
You've ruined it for everybody, Rob.
Well, I'm just saying it's
so much of this passing through talk.
I was gonna say, Roger, what would you do?
I've had food allergies since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I could not drink any dairy products. I could only drink soy milk.
Oh, really?
So I was allergic to eggs, strawberries.
No,
but you're not anymore.
I grew out of some of my allergies, and I gained other ones.
No butter roasted hazelnuts with a side of watermelon for this crowd.
Watermelon, I love it.
No, but Sarah hates it. This is not all about you.
But it's not an allergy. Is it an allergy or is it just a taste?
So I'm not allergic to it. I just don't want it. It's horrible. It's like eating mud.
Well,
it's actually not like eating mud, but it's
folks watching video, thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed the show. And folks on audio, please continue to stick around. There's more to come.